Welcome to Biztech Marketing Show, the show where we feature companies operating across Asia, talking about their solutions and how they make a difference to the customers' businesses. Today, we speak to Ori Gold, the CEO of Bench Media, and Ashleigh Murray, the Senior Vice President, E-commerce Global at Lyre Spirits. Now, and to discuss how Bench, a leading programmatic media solutions provider, helped Lyre Spirits in capturing the audience attention and driving purchase decisions across the region and globally. Now, welcome to the show, Ori and Ashleigh.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's great to be here.
Now, can we start by first telling us a little bit about each of your companies? And it's ladies first, so over to you, Ashleigh.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. So Lyre is basically a range of premium non-alcoholic drinks. So we pay homage to the flavors that you already know and love. And what makes Lyre so appealing compared to our competitors is that you can basically, with the breadth of our range and the quality of our range, you can replicate about 90% of the world's existing cocktail recipes. And so with that breadth and quality that we, unlock for people, we also are quite flexible. Compared to a lot of competitors, you might see that their actual flavors are concocted of their own recipe, whereas we are paying homage to the flavors that you already know and love. That means that you can actually mix us with alcohol as well. So that now gives you the flexibility to not only create a non-alcoholic format, but you can also mix it with alcohol to create a low alcoholic format. That then opens up a wide range of audiences and it really empowers a person to be able to drink a drink their way, whether they choose a low alc, a no alc option.
Now, Ashleigh, this is a very new brand, but you've just basically been operating on turbocharged growth. Now, tell us about your start in 2019 and what was the strategy?
Turbo growth. I'm glad you identified that. So basically, we consider ourselves very much a challenger mindset of a business. Our ambition is to change the way the world drinks, and a part of that strategy is as fast growth as possible into as many markets as possible. And yeah, a part of that changing the way the world drinks is about the empowerment that I touched on before. And we plan to be, we're very strong D2C focus, and that was always a strategy from the beginning. That wasn't something that happened as a result of COVID. We have always been data-driven first. We've made a lot of strategic decisions based off data and research. We have always focused on our D2C first and making sure that we, not only own the customer, but we make sure that we're using those learnings to make really informed decisions. And we always want to have an audience and a community to speak to. So that's always been the strategy from the beginning for us.
Now over to you, Ori. Tell us a little bit about Bench.
Thanks, Brian. I guess Bench is one of the probably biggest independent programmatic and digital agencies here in Australia. We operate since 2012. And basically what we do is we focus on being the best in the region in programmatic and digital advertising. In the past, advertising and marketing was very simple. There was the billboards, TV ads, few magazines, and that's it. Some cigars in closed rooms. But today, there are many, many different channels. You have social, and within social, you have video formats like TikTok and Snap. You have Facebook, you have LinkedIn, B2B, B2C. You have a range of display networks like the Google network and many major publications. You have native advertising. All the TV format is actually becoming connected and programmatic today with array of various on-demand platforms and channels that we can today serve ads on. Podcast, we spoke before the show about podcasts, Brian. So today in Spotify, we can inject ads automatically and digitally and be there when somebody is listening to the best music or podcasts. That include also SoundCloud and other publications and apps. So what happens today is that marketers have really dozens of channels, dozens of formats, dozens of mediums that they need to communicate the messages with a variety of audiences, and that gives a lot of complexity. We are experts in untangling that complexity. We have our own proprietary platform, which gives visibility, control, transparency for marketers to see what the campaigns are doing, how they're doing, how effective they are, and be able to switch very quickly between the different formats to get basically the best for the buck. So again, focusing on digital only and programmatic advertising, and helping brands and agencies to scale their marketing and make it a bit more pointy.
Okay, so how did this partnership between both your companies come about?
Yeah, would you like me to answer that, Ori?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go.
Jump in.
You go. Yeah.
So basically, like I'd mentioned, we were very digital first, and during the COVID, pandemic, there was really strong focus on performance marketing. So, we were heavily investing in social and Google, but obviously you start to hit a ceiling in terms of performance marketing, and then you need to start going, right, I need to start opening up new channels, new audiences, new opportunities to just get to that next level. And so we decided we would engage with Bench. They're well known in the region, and I've worked with them previously at League. And what we were exploring was, okay, what are the new channels that we can open up, still balancing that return on ad spend, but we also were looking at how do we get that broader brand awareness as well? How do we get impressions and eyeballs in front of new audiences, or even, still on our existing audiences, just new channels as well. So we all know it takes multiple times for someone to see something before that they make a purchase. So just opening up additional channels means they may have seen us on Facebook, they might have seen us in a display ad, they might have seen us on social, and now we've got, and on Google. So yeah, now we've got that real good mix for someone to come through and make a conversion. So we decided to work with Bench to start opening up new channels for us.
For us, it was fantastic because, again, Ashleigh and her worked with us many years before too, and they have a fantastic team. And for us, it's really exciting to work with scale-ups and brands that really understand their audiences, really have ambitions. Where I think particularly with Ashleigh's and the Lyre's brand, because they need to grow so fast, they needed to open new markets constantly and reach new audiences. And for us, that task was fantastic because we can introduce a really wide array of our capabilities that go beyond the Facebook Google do, I guess. There are a lot of amazing formats and amazing publications out there. There's a lot of data sets that we can buy today and really mix and match and A/B tests different things to help brands similar to Lyre's to really scale up quickly. Particularly in the pandemic, this is something that we see a lot happening these days. Companies need to really go on fast growth, but they need to do it very effectively. They can't allow to waste a lot of money on that experimentation, and that's where our technology kicks in.
Now, actually, I want to ask you about your 5 personas. How did you identify them?
Great question. And at that time, there might have been 5 personas. We definitely are very nimble in our approach to that as well. That can change by region, by maturity of market, all these sorts of elements, come into play. But at the time, we obviously, we focused a lot on our Google Analytics. We've done a lot of consumer research. And like I touched on before, we are heavy in community in terms of social. So we have this really great fluid relationship with the community and speaking to people in real time and getting those insights as well, which is just undeniably, so helpful when we're, doing that approach to any sort of advertising. We also, had spent, as touched on before, spent a considerable amount of time and money on performance marketing. So there was a lot of learnings from the performance marketing as to what audience worked, what didn't. But that also is fluid and changes depending on the artwork that you're serving. So I think what's really positive and like something for any business to take away is to not be rigid and structured in your audiences. Obviously, it gives you a great baseline to approach, and it gave great insight for Ori and the bench team to start off with. But I think it's about being adaptable. And so as you start serving ads and you see, okay, this artwork's working for this audience, but not necessarily this one. Do we try a new audience? Do we see something? So I think it's about really remaining fluid. And, every 2 weeks we would be touching base and looking at the results and adapting based on the results. We let data lead us.
Okay, so that's a key thing because Ori, because as you mentioned earlier, there's so many channels out of the normal Facebook and Google, which everyone spends the bulk of their money on. How did you then use that, the Lyre's baseline 5 personas, and then as part of the global expansion strategy, then customize it to each different market or different region? That would be interesting to find out.
Yeah, that's a great it's a great question, and like Ashleigh said, Lyre is a very savvy brand, and they have a really savvy in-house marketing team, and they work with other agencies. So working in collaboration with them, we took those personas and worked with Ashleigh's team to extend those to dozens of different experimentations. So basically what happens is today we're trying to work in reverse. We have some basic assumption, but then we expand those assumptions and start to match different data sets. So we took a lot of the first party data that Ashleigh spoke about. They have a big community. They have a lot of audiences that they're already in conversation with. And basically using technology, we're breaking down the different attributes those audiences have and start looking and experimenting with similar audiences on different platforms, similar to Google and Facebook, but much beyond it. So we work with a lot of native platforms like Outbrain and Taboola. We work with technologies like the Trade Desk and Verizon. We worked with the Amazon ecosystem that and a lot of third-party data that allows us to create dozens of segments in different markets and basically allow the algorithm to start revealing using AI what is the real attributes that really makes a difference. And that's this methodology, as Ashleigh mentioned before, makes the marketing, go beyond the original brief, much more agile, and at the end of the day, saves for the brands a lot of money.
Okay, Ori, I'm going to ask you a hard question, and Ashleigh, you can jump in whenever. Give us a specific example of a specific country or region where you actually had to execute a brief that Ashleigh gave you. And what did you actually do for it?
Yeah. For instance, Ashleigh and the Lyre's team have an amazing brand in Australia, right? So, for instance, the approach we took in the Australian market is not about discovering the aha moment. Oh, no alcoholic brands. This is something that I can try. In Australia, the market was much more sophisticated. So we needed to work with the team to create an always-on approach, meaning that we worked with Lyre's and the other agencies to keep on feeding into the Australian market new messages and sequencing those messages to where the audiences is at each stage of the funnel. So how familiar with the brand are they? How familiar are they with the concept of non-alcoholic brand? And all the way to actually purchasing online, using campaigns like the Dry July, which is currently creating a hype around non-alcoholic drinks and celebrating that concept. So go beyond that simple message. In contrary, in Europe and in the US, these were new markets for Lyre. So in those markets, the brand was much less familiar So we needed to first take an approach of introducing to audiences the message of non-alcoholic brand. And what we found out together with Ashleigh's team is that it's not only those who are extremely conscious of well-being and sports and health that are interested in non-alcoholic brands. The beauty in Lyre's brand is that they've managed to penetrate using the brand positioning, the messaging, and the uniqueness. They managed to come across as something schmick, something cool, something that every person, including that tough man that drinks at the pub with his mates, they can try and get that sophisticated brand and look cool. And working closely and sequencing the right messages at the right time to these new audiences allowed us to really, really scale, but not only create that awareness to actually drive bottom line sales, because Ashleigh and her team, not only doing retail, they actually sell their brand direct to customer online, so people can actually understand the concept, get excited, and buy it online at that immediate point.
Furthering on to combining what Ori just said and your question. So Bench were brought on originally, we started off with Dry July, and we realized we needed to, be an always on approach throughout Q4 and Dry January. So when you look at, we're quite fortunate compared to, say, let's say we're talking about a fashion brand or something like that, where their Q4 is really focused on, November, December. It's that Christmas sales period. We are quite fortunate, especially in Australia, where we've got dry months like Dry July, and then we lead into October. So we start talking about that early. Then we lead into Christmas gifting. Then we lead into start talking about Dry January. So our peak period is quite an extensive one. It is basically 6 months of the year. So when we look at it from that perspective. And so what Ori was mentioning before is that always on, we had so much content that we had to drip feed, through these audiences, and that would change depending on what we were doing. So when we're talking about Dry July, for example, we had a campaign called Try July, and we were trying to get people to go into bars in the hospitality industry, get their complimentary drink on us and be able to try a Lyre's cocktail in a venue. And then we would serve them through the app notification to come back to the website and purchase. So the audiences that Bench were going after then, for example, might have been really geo-targeted around those particular venues versus the audiences that then they were then going after for October or Christmas. So the audiences really changed, the artwork changed, and the approach changed. It was very fluid and dynamic throughout that entire 6 month, peak period is where we focus. So I just thought I'd add that.
And what the duration of the partnership and what have been the outcomes?
Yes. So we definitely identified that we wanted to, reach that next level above, just performance marketing channels. And that was during the peak periods. So we invest during the peak periods in these additional channels, especially because it's such a time for the business of recruitment. It's so important in a dry month, to capitalize on those dry month and peak periods. So that's where we see the investment happening with Bench, is always during that 6 month, process there.
Now, overall, in terms of this partnership, what have been some of the unexpected benefits or outcomes from this partnership, Ashleigh?
Definitely, I would say, like we touched on, the performance plateau happens when you're focused so heavily on return on ad spend and you're focusing on those performance metrics. There's only so many levers you can pull there. So by opening up new untapped areas and audiences and channels, it opened up that revenue growth to get us to that next level during those peak periods. It also helped us discover new audiences and learnings as well. What someone is looking at in the maturity of their purchasing life cycle in a display ad versus social, what keeps them coming to the site, or how many times do we have to serve something before they make a purchase? There's a lot of learnings there that happen when you're not so focused on the performance metrics, and you can start to explore, impressions, reach, click through to site, what content are they interested in, how long are they staying on the website? These are all those sorts of learnings that when you're being so performance focused, you're not getting those sorts of insights.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll have to add to that. We see that a lot happening in the marketplace, particularly these days. So because Facebook and Google ad spaces being so dominant for so many years, many advertisers and agencies are focusing only on those two ecosystems. What that makes these systems very, very crowded. It's a supply and demand thing. You know, they're very comfortable, they're very accessible, and the vast of the advertisers are just buying inventory there, makes it very, very, very pricey. If you'll track the prices and the CPCs and the CPMs, the costs of inventory throughout the years, you'll see that it's completely skyrocketing. So the current return of advertising dollar for brands today on those platforms is nowhere near where it was once. So brands need to do today, and particularly now with the recent privacy, you've probably heard about the recent privacy, I guess, shebang that goes with Apple.
Absolutely, and that's impacted Facebook tremendously.
Exactly.
Tremendously.
So yeah, everyone's tracking the prices knows that Facebook basically lost about 30% retargeting and targeting capabilities, while pricing really soaring high. So basically, from an advertiser perspective, the returns are just diminishing. And because it's very complex to enter new platforms and new ecosystems, upper management is just trying to throw more money there or fire the team and get a new one, but the results are the same. So it's a bit of counterintuitive, but basically brands and agencies needs to spend more money on top of the funnel, expand and diversify the platforms they work with, start working with a lot of fantastic channels. There's a lot, like I said before, there's programmatic audio, there's on-demand TV, there's the Amazon ecosystem, there's a lot of demand side platform and data technologies out there that go well beyond the Facebook and Google duo that can really, really get those returns back up.
Now, Ori, the Amazon ecosystem is something that has been under the radar for many people, but then until just a few days ago when they released their earnings for the first time, people realized they had a $30 billion business, US dollar business. Now, could you kind of shed light in terms of the opportunities around the Amazon advertising system?
Yeah, many people don't know if they're not in the marketing area or in the edtech martech space. It came as a surprise, but for Ashleigh and myself, who are doing these things for quite a while, we tracking Amazon for the many years. They went on a series of acquisitions and got a lot of digital media and data assets relating into the ed technology space. They bought Seismic, which is a very advanced technology to serve ads with really smart algorithms a few years ago, which is the base of the real-time bidding capabilities today. And what they have IMDb, not many people know that IMDb, which is a massive publication, one of the biggest websites in the world around movies and reviews, etc., actually owned by Amazon. They have Prime Video, which is, I think, second or third in the States in terms of on-demand viewership. So they have an array of different media and digital assets that, combining the purchase data that they have as the biggest retailer in the world or e-commerce marketplace in the world, puts them in a really unique position. And that series of acquisition, like anything Amazon does, was a very strategic move. In the States, they're now the third largest advertiser provider in the world. And it's becoming very, very clear that they're going to be the third biggest globally. They definitely take a big chunk of the pie of edtech and advertising, and they do it directly from Google and Facebook. For us as marketers, it's really, really exciting.
Now, Ori and Ashleigh, it's been a fascinating conversation. But before we end, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with us? And Ashleigh, we're going to start with you. Ladies first again.
Any thoughts I'd like to share? Well, in terms of what we've learned and what's next, I would say our strategy is still to change the way the world drinks. That has not changed, and it is still about global rapid expansion and being a challenger mindset. And with being a challenger mindset comes adoption and experimentation on different channels. So that is something that we'll continue to do. I think that is the beauty of being in a startup, especially with founders who really understand and have backed digital from the beginning, even prior to a COVID world. So that is the beauty of my position, is having full support to experiment, because I think a lot of businesses don't do that and fear, you know, you have to try new channels, and you have to try and be prepared that it will take some time to get the learnings from those, but there's rewards at the end of it. So that is definitely still going to be our approach.
Over to you, Ori, final thoughts?
Yeah, we are looking forward to working with many brands, and we work with agencies to basically, we help them, like I said, to scale their digital capabilities, go beyond. We've just released last year our proprietary platform as a SaaS solution, which we currently give in-house teams. So those brands that want to take more control and make and scale their marketing and advertising function internally. Or we work with agencies too, those who want to have access to all these wonderful channels and platforms, but find it quite complex. Our platform gives analytics solution, workflow and management, basically give you an operating system to manage all the digital channels, see everything in one place, get transparency into where you buy and how much you buy and how effective the campaigns are. So we're very, very excited. We launched into Singapore and Southeast Asia also last year. There's really good traction. We're going to continue developing these markets. And of course, in our hometown in Australia, keep on working with exciting brands like Lyre.
Now, Ori and Ashleigh, thank you for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Brian. It was a pleasure.
It's been great.
Now, we've been speaking to Ori Gold, CEO of Bench Media, and Ashleigh Murray, Senior Vice President, E-commerce Global at Lyre Spirits, on Biztech's Marketing Show. This video and podcast will be on our various platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks for tuning in.